Ever since I found out I could talk to my grandpa in the afterlife through a psychic medium, I realized he has so many nuggets of wisdom to share with me, which I hope to share with you guys. So if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe down below. If you have any questions for Grandpa Luan, comment below and they might be featured in our next video. So thanks again for watching, and I hope you enjoy.
Hi, Maria. Hi, Grandpa.
Hello.
Today is a very juicy topic that I want to talk about, and it's societal norms and human customs. So kind of like what humans create as like is appropriate, but now I'm sure over time it always changes. So let's say with relationships, are humans were they originally meant to marry? Like, were we meant to marry to just one partner? Because, you know, in the past or different cultures, it's always like, you know, sometimes you don't really marry people. You just sleep around in the same tribe or whatever. And that tribe kind of goes around with you, you know. But nowadays it's normal to be married to like one person and raise kids that way. But some people, they don't even get married and they still raise kids. So were we meant to marry each other?
Interesting. Great question. He's saying something along the lines of like the beings who created us helped create certain, what do you call it? Encouragement to pair off because it could help create more success with breeding. Basically, like if you had more stability in a community of beings, let's say human beings, right? Like if there was more structure, there was more security for the offspring to survive. So encouraging early humans to pod into like structures and helped them have a better chance of survival. We weren't necessarily designed to just have one partner. Like it wasn't uncommon for early man to have several. However, they still kind of were tight-knit in some way. So it's more of a modern phenomenon. And actually, there's more and more people becoming, let's say, untraditional and having several partners, being polyamorous and things like that. So it depends, but that's not for everyone. It depends too, like on your belief. Where like there's been so much, let's say, conditioning from, especially religion. It really started from religions, not even like pre-Christianity, pre-major religion. It's like belief system, but in other cultures that didn't have, let's say, this kind of, or let's just say Christianity's example, because it's a really large religion here in the United States and the world. But let's say earlier civilizations, like before the spread of Christianity, like native cultures with native beliefs were more symbolic, centered on, let's say, land and the seasons and all that. So they had like a different cultural point of reference, and their religions were different because of that. And it wasn't uncommon for a man to have several wives. So over time it kind of got warped and it kind of changed and became a form of control. And people always wonder, like, why do so many people cheat? Why is this such a common thing? Like, if we were meant to be just paired off for life, then why is there so many issues with staying married and things? And
Yeah.
and what he's saying, like the truth is that we weren't specifically designed for that. It's something that evolved. And that's why there's more of a resurgence of people experimenting with other alternate types of relationships, and why marriage isn't as popular in the younger generations. The same type idea of marriage isn't as popular because people are starting to look past things like religion and social expectation, cultural definitions, and starting to, kind of go with what feels right to them, which makes a lot of people of previous generations a little anxious and angry even, and a little uneasy, and thinking that people are being like corrupted. But really it's just a natural part of human evolution, and we're almost like went backwards, and now like by going and doing the pairing off thing and the marriage and all that stuff, and it's almost like we're advancing by being more fluid and having even more fluid definitions of attraction, all that stuff. So as society is more prosperous, it becomes less about wanting to just like reproduce as it is to experience love and companionship. So yes, the short answer
do you
is
see
no. We weren't designed for just that. We were designed for a variety of different scenarios.
Okay. Because I was like, is there a structure that seems to work for majority of people? Of course, obviously, there's it depends on it depends on the person. But do you see a structure that works for a lot of the newer generation, or what we were meant to have and be? Or just maybe what you see with the newer generations in the future doing?
He said something that he was like, excuse me, it's not that pairing off is the problem, it's the length of time. So, for example, people have this pressure to mate for life. And honestly, a lot of people just grow apart. It's very stressful emotionally and otherwise to force growth to be in alignment for an entire life, because we have free will, and it creates a lot of issues. So like people can be, it's funny, you see it with celebrities a lot where they may be together 10, 20 years and then they're like, okay, well, it was a good run. We mutually respect each other, but we're moving on. And then they have another wonderful, beautiful relationship, and people oftentimes see that as dysfunctional, but they're a little less weighed down by society because they're already kind of breaking societal norms as it is. So they're just more free to like try out more alternative things than we are. So for them, it's like they follow a more natural rhythm where it's like, let's see, this is good, and when it feels not right anymore, then we mutually feel that, and then we move on. And so there's a lot of romance. The idea of romance, soulmates, has really messed people up in the head because they feel inadequate if they don't find their soulmate. They feel like something's wrong with them, or they feel doomed or cursed if they can't find the soulmate to be with them for the rest of their life, instead of enjoying a relationship as long as it lasts. And then when it doesn't serve them anymore, then it can be a mutual growth process of moving on. That's going to probably make a lot of people angry, but that's a more natural rhythm. And so it's not the pairing is like unnatural or weird necessarily. It's more of like the idea of marriage for life is artificial. So to clarify on the last question, it's really about the idea of marriage for life. That's man-made.
Okay. And so I guess like in a way that kind of sounds like it's normal to kind of find like a partnership or companion. And when you guys feel like you're done with a relationship, you've learned as much as you can in a positive way, and you felt like the relationship had a good run, and you're two different people now, you just kind of move on to the next, whatever person you find. Kind of sounds like that. Is that right?
Yeah. And you don't, if you're working well with your life partner, you don't have to break up with them at some point. If you are growing well together, then great. But a lot of people try and stay in relationships that aren't working because they feel like they're failures. If they break the marriage, they also feel like God is going to hate them, or their family's going to think that something's wrong with them. The kids are going to get messed up, which they can at a young age. But if society was just structured differently, where there was just less pressure, there would be a lot, probably, he's showing me like a lot less, like he's saying the pressure and the insecurity it creates can create more incidences of cheating, like infidelity and things like that. So he's saying like it's like an unnatural level of pressure that causes people to be more deviant, more like in relationships, like do very hurtful, very even sometimes dark things because they're under like a pressure cooker.
Got it. So I know maybe people would argue, well, let's say you have a kid with the first person and you feel like your relationship is done and you're ready to move on to another person. Wouldn't that create instability for kids and that would mess them up growing up and all that stuff?
Yeah. Okay. So in our current societal structure, yes, that would it does mess kids up. But if imagine like a futuristic society where people don't have like marriage by law anymore, it's more of like life partnerships, and people are taught from the time they're young that partnerships are a healthy thing and that they may last a little bit of time and then it's natural for it to fade, and that it's not a bad thing if someone moves on, and there's a communal aspect to raising a family so that they'll still see their parent and they'll also get to appreciate the new parent. And this all sounds very like terrifying for people, but honestly, this is the future. That is eventually where we're going to end up more like that. And it scares people, and this is not for a very, very long time. But there are some communities that do this, and maybe not in the healthiest way. But it will become, when society learns to like think for themselves more and to go by feeling and to go by community and to appreciate community, there's going to be a lot less competition, a lot less jealousy, a lot less like infidelity, and the kids are not going to be taught that, oh, mommy and daddy got divorced, it's a bad thing. It'll be more of like, this is a natural part of life. So it's all about perspective.
Wow. Okay.
And is damaging in our current structure, yes.
Oh yeah. I was like, people I don't think are even ready to accept this concept.
Oh no.
But
or not
in
even
the future could see.
Yeah.
Okay. And let's see here. What are your thoughts on abortion in the afterlife? I knew obviously, because our family's Catholic, but it's, pro-life, no killing babies and everything and stuff like that. But what do you see in the afterlife now?
He says, well, there's a couple things. He started off by saying, like, in life, he was, like, very against abortion. Mm-hmm. But he sees the way these babies that come in that are aborted, they're these very special little souls. So these little lights that come in, they, most of the time, are aware of what's going to happen and know they're not going to live to completion, but they will
Sorry, you got cut off.
Mother's life, parent's life. So he's saying that, did you get the part where he said they're like little lights that come in?
Yes, and then it got cut off right there.
Okay, so he's saying that they know they won't, like many times these spirits know they won't, souls, let's say, know they won't maybe like live life to completion, but they will teach the mother and also sometimes the father valuable lessons that are necessary for their growth. So it's interesting. They've signed. This is just as we sign up for our experiences. So even the babies that end up getting aborted, like they sign up for the experiences, and they usually come back as another baby in the future or in the family in some way. But they have this very like lightness to them because they knew the experience that they're going to have is like very brave and very powerful little beings. So yeah, that's kind of, so basically it's hard for people, right? It's hard for the baby and stuff, but it's interesting on the other side to see the spirits that come back from being aborted and stuff.
do you see abortion as, humans usually define things as good or bad, but do you see it now as just a choice? It's neither good or bad.
Yeah, he's saying his views in life were that it was bad, but now he says it is truly a choice that, and it is a contract between two souls, you know, the mother especially and the baby. Um, and he's saying it's not just abortion, but everything in life is a choice. We don't once you've crossed over, you don't see things like you did in life, so you won't see things as good or bad. You will see things as decisions that are probabilities that you can enforce or not enforce. And so there are repercussions to that, you know, and that's something that is under consideration when you do undergo something. So he's not judging, but he's just saying that it's a choice. Indeed.
Let's see here. Okay, this one I thought of last night. Just kind of popped in my head. But what is the trend with religion looking like? Like for example, like I see that the younger crowd, millennials, or even younger generations, are starting to like not leave religion, but not resonate with it anymore as much as, let's say, our parents' generation. So, what does the future of religion look like? Does it look like the future kids are just gonna be like, nope, I'm just gonna have my own, create my own values, or half and half, or where's the youth heading?
Okay, so the next few generations, especially, are redefining what faith is. They're redefining what institutional religion means, and they are basically, they're kind of like little philosophers. They're even the millennials. Like the millennials are really like the first modern. Well, there's been the generation that was like in the 60s. They were starting to break this down too, but then they ended up getting sucked into the machine anyway. But the millennials have really been the first generation in a long time to really question these practices, and all the next few generations after them especially are going to be changing the way society views religion, and also religion's role in government, which, the way we were founded, it wasn't supposed to be something that was embedded in government, but just kind of exposing those things, learning to free think more, to feel more intuitive generations. They're like, what feels good to me, not because someone told it to me. Like, they want to kind of more like, let me try things. Maybe I'll get the hand burned on the stove and I'll learn, or maybe I won't. Maybe it'll be great. But they want to experiment with things. But there's also like more cults showing up, I think. Some weird like spiritual cults.
Okay.
Potential for that. Because it's really a reaction to institutionalized religion trying to find their own way to do it, but then there's a little too much ego involved and then it becomes a cult. So there's a lot of trial and error that's going to happen over the next few generations. So it's institutional religion is going to continue to get less popular. Like, big old institutions are going to get less patrons that are, the next few.
Like, it'll fade out a little bit.
Yeah, and they'll be forced to change drastically. Ooh, I don't know why he's giving me so many tingles on this one. So maybe because religion was important to your grandpa in life, and his own beliefs were challenged. Once he crossed over, his own ideals were challenged, and he's a pretty fair man, so he likes to kind of weigh things out now, especially without the pressure of life and culture and society. And so he says, there's going to be new and more intuitive aspects of adopting a belief system that are going to become more common.
Awesome. Talking about the youth, how can a person find their purpose in life? for example, are there methods they can use or exercises they can do, or is it just all how they feel? Like, what is something that people or the youth there's advice for the youth, like they might commonly overlook, like, we talked about before where we always felt like even at a young age, we felt like we had the weight of the world on our shoulders, or that we were meant to do something greater. And it was just like this feeling, and like some people didn't get it.
Yep.
And there's maybe more to life than just an office job, right? And so, but we didn't know what it was until like we started doing this Happy Healing Shop, and kind of like, I wouldn't say fell into our laps. It kind of just lined up really well. So for other people that are listening in on this, how can they find their purpose in life, or when can they, get something that not lands in their lap, but where they just go have that aha moment and go like, oh, I think this is what I really was meant to do?
This goes back to like institutional problems where the way from the time children begin school, they're kind of taught to think for themselves less and less as they get entrenched in institutional learning. And there's a lot of good opportunities, but also a lot of learning to mistrust their own feelings and what they want to do, and learning to more please their elders, you could say, which has been a tradition for a very long time. You could kind of call it a tradition. Is interesting because it's just passed down from generation to generation. But upcoming generations will start to question this more because they themselves, the people who are now just starting to become teachers, are not going to be satisfied with the limited nature and the very black and white nature in which things are taught. So you'll see more alternative schools pop up, more alternative learning techniques, styles, and also you might see more camps for kids that are about facilitating some, their inner desires. And people who are a little more traditional might get like insult these types of things and calling them like hippy dippy or like woo woo or whatever, but there truly is a deep desire to from a younger age to create a more maintain that wholeness as they get older, the children. So being able to let the child have a voice still, because what happens is the child has a voice, they use it a lot and noise the crap out of parents because they're screaming, they're constantly exercising their voice, but then they learn to behave, which is good in one way, right? It's good to give them some structure, but then they also learn to just listen to what the big older person says all the time. But kids actually have quite a bit of innate wisdom, but they're dismissed because they're too young to know, because we don't fundamentally understand how intelligent babies and children really are. We fundamentally are so arrogant, especially as we get older, we get more arrogant, where we fundamentally don't understand development still, like the stages of development, like what babies even pick up and all that stuff. So it starts really from the time the baby is in gestation, that how we're structuring those environments affects the confidence level of people coming out. But any people now like totally constantly switching majors, feeling, sabotaging themselves in school, dropping out of school, not wanting to go to school.
Yeah.
Having so many different professions and feeling always like nothing fills them up, because they're still subconsciously chasing after a desire to have validation from society and family and friends. So again, it's a similar thing to like, how would kids in the future not be like totally messed up by their parents breaking up? It's the same thing. It's all about how we structure society, and society isn't structured for self-development and self-trust and intuition. It's structured to create little bots that will go out and do what we need them to do in society. So that's basically.
So in treatment and treating people, I guess, like, is there a culture or country that you see like, they do a pretty good job. They kind of do it right, and you can see that their people are doing well in terms of that?
Denmark's pretty good.
Time to move.
Well, no, none of them are perfect, but there's more of Denmark's pretty decent. If you were to look at a structure.
Okay.
Yeah, just as an example.
What other future customs or societal norms do you see happening in the future? So we talked about the relationship part, the marriage thing, but any other things that you kind of see
So
projecting?
interesting. He just showed me in the future, you know how we have sex ed in high school stuff?
Yeah.
The future, they're going to have a relationship ed type class.
Oh.
Yeah, where they actually teach you how to develop healthy relationships,
Wow.
friends, family, and then they teach you also about the responsibility and the communication of having a successful relationship in the future. And this will usually be, it seems to be like it'll be rolled out in high school. So when they're starting to get relationships, maybe middle school even, where it'll prep them for, okay, because the kids just start going off and doing all this stuff and they don't know what the hell they're doing. All we say is, don't do it without the protection. And we don't tell them how to like function from person to person. We don't give them any social training or social skills on how to empathize with others and how to
Yes,
listen.
a lot of people could use that training.
So he's saying like, as psychology progresses, especially, people are going to realize that there's a big hole in the curriculum for setting children up to be communicative, self-aware, and productive adults. So this is something that's going to start being rolled out in the future, and other things like pretty cool, right? So I'm like, dang, that sounds.
I know. I know, like, even there's some programs now for kids, like maybe in elementary school, where they're, it's kind of new, but where they're trying to expose them that not everyone's different. People can be gay, LGBTQT. I always get that wrong. But yeah, like they're introducing, like, like not everyone's born the same, like that way, and how to not bully each other and stuff like that. So that's good. That's awesome. Wow.
For us, other people hate it, but
Oh yeah.
But yes, it is. There's going to be more programs like that people will be very frustrated by because they're having to break their paradigm.
People don't like change. Yeah, blah blah blah. That seems like a reoccurring theme in all these videos. Like there's like this old traditional thing, and these people don't like it, but then the new crowd, they're gonna bring it in. In the end, it ends up being better for everyone. Yep. So. Yeah. So to wrap this up, again, I always like to end with like, what can we do with our part to, in terms of societal norms and human customs, and to play our part or like to help each other on this.
So he's just really tingling me right now. He's pretty passionate about this because he's saying it's important to get to the root of development for society, for all the beings in it. So you don't have to wait for the school system to implement these newer, fundamentally more progressive systems of teaching. Saying parents can empower themselves now to fill in the gaps if they can't afford a special private school or whatever, Montessori or some specialized school, to fill in the gaps with their kids and to teach their kids that they do have a voice and to teach them how to use it in a fair, graceful, and impactful way. And the thing is that the problem is that parents don't even know how to do this themselves. They're like grown adults that don't know how to do this themselves. They've never learned. And that's why you have all these problems at work and it's just, and organizations, is people always not getting along because we don't teach that. It's not just about sharing your toys. It's about learning how to communicate how you feel about it and why you're doing it, right? So and this is going to take a while, but we can start the process of expanding the curriculum of how to be a more grounded, community-oriented being, because we need that, especially as resources become more limited, as there's more conflicts in the world. We do need to focus more on community and helping each other fill in the gaps and teaching each other. And he's saying people do this a lot in social forums and stuff online, but to continue to try to keep thinking outside of what you grew up with. Analyze it yourself and ask yourself, was this really healthy for me? you said especially parents who want to, or people who want to be parents, think about the things that you grew up with that were just jammed into your head and forced down your throat that you actually realize that you never had a choice in. And think to yourself, like, now, what would I do differently with when I'm bringing a new child into the world? So it takes some introspection and some therapy sometimes just to get there, but he encourages people to do that because it will create a better route for society to go from.
Oh, well, thank you. This was like a really fun topic to talk about.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, no, it was good. He was very passionate.
well, thanks so much, Grandpa, and thanks, Maria, for bringing him in.
Oh, it's always my pleasure.
Okay.
Bye for now.
Bye.